So welcome aboard. This is the pilot episode, if you will, of the Jim Reith Show Unleashed with, of course, producer Bill Ali. We're in a undisclosed Central New York location in the inner sanctum, as before. And I thought what we'd do today is to give you a timeline from when producer Bill and I were both blown out of what was then, was it iHeart then?
It turned iHeart like maybe a year before.
Okay, so iHeart Radio fired us both on the same day. So I'll give you an update what happened then until what's going on now with both of us, actually, because Bill's story is actually much more interesting than mine. But I'll fill you in on what happened to me. So the day that we were both let go, the day that we were both told our presence was no longer required in the building, I was told to come in early, and I did. But I came in early every day, which my boss didn't realize, but that's all right. So we came in early.
For that, though.
Yeah.
You hid.
Yes. Yes, I did. So I went into my boss's office, and I said, has it started yet? Those were my first words out. Because we had heard that iHeart was going to do another purge, as they had done in the past. They had done 3 other large purges of local talent from their stations across the country. And the first words out of his mouth were, Joel wants to see you. And I said, so it's me. And he said, just go listen to what Joel has to say. And I resisted the temptation to knock him out. And I went with him. We went upstairs. And Joel was in the conference room with Rich Lauber, who was the operations manager at the time.
You were up in the.
My office was downstairs.
At that point, that's right.
This is the old news director's office.
That's right.
My old office.
Right, because we used to be up in the.
Yes, in the loft.
Yeah, the loft.
Right. Loved that.
Where
I loved being up there. Yes, everyone left me alone. I was by myself. It was great. It was awesome. I shared it with Skip Clark, who was just a great guy, the greatest guy ever.
He's the guy that first hired me in radio.
Really?
Yep.
Great guy. So I went upstairs to where all the salespeople were and the offices of the general manager, and I went into the conference room, which, by the way, was mostly glass, so you could see in. So I'm sitting there, and I'll never forget this either. Joel and I were friends, and we are friends. His words were, well, Jim, this is where we part company. Now, Joel was never good at confrontation. He was never good at explaining things, so he didn't. He just said, this is it. We're going to let you go. But he laid out a severance package for me, which was more than acceptable. It was great. They took care of me, which was nice because, I had helped them out quite a bit in the years preceding that. So I just sat there kind of in shock. And I think Ballcap, who was my boss, started to say something, and I just put my hand up.
I see. This is all new. This is all new to me. So
oh,
this
yeah.
is cool.
I put my hand up. He stopped. And Joel said, now you can't say anything negative about iHeart for the next year. And I said, I would never do that anyway. And he said, well, you can't do it. I said, don't insult me. Just tell me what's going on so I can leave. So he did. Laid it all out. I left. I'm walking down with the Ballcap, who, at this point, I just went. So,
and Ballcap is Jason First.
He was our boss.
Our boss.
Right.
Younger than both of us.
Yeah, by a lot.
And I'm, Jim's 20 years younger than I am.
By a lot. So he's walking down with Julie.
They are married now?
Yes, Julie First. I won't tell her our nickname for her, but that's okay. She's also a very, very nice person, very sweet woman. Okay, they're married now. And the words he said to me were, this is not what I wanted. And I said, dude, you do realize now that the only person left from when you got here is Joe. Everyone else at WSYR, when he got there, was gone. Everyone else, except you and Mike, but that came later.
Yes.
So I just laughed. And I said, you know what, I don't blame you. And I didn't because it was iHeart. So I put my stuff in the car and left. That was that. That was it. I've never been back.
Now, you must have seen a folder on Joel's desk with my name on it.
I did.
Because I get, as you're going out the door, I just got blown out. You're next. Was the text.
Yep. And I saw Mike's folder too. So, and I knew he was gone anyway because Joe, who was the morning guy at the time, Joe Galuski, a wonderful man and a great friend of mine, didn't like Mike. And I think it was also just they were just getting rid of people left and right, as many as they could.
And there was a big age difference between Mike and Joe too. Also,
there was. Yep, there definitely was. So that was that. That was the end of my experience. And I did have to go back once to get my stuff.
Yeah, they would not let us take our stuff.
No, I had to come back at a different time when no one was there and get my stuff, and that was it. So after that, I got a couple offers, which I didn't like, and one was for part-time on the local other sports station, not ESPN, the other one, where our friend Jim Lurch works. So I turned that down. It was mornings, but it was part-time, and I couldn't be part-time at the time because I was still paying child support, and the kids were on my insurance. So I needed to find a job right away. And I got a call or a text or an email from Bob Dano, who ran WCNY. And he said, this was a couple weeks later, I think. He said, why don't you come in and we'll talk. I said, okay. So I went in, talked. They hired me to do a TV show. And this is after a couple months because I had taken a trip overseas and came back and was trying to figure out what I was going to do. So he hired me to do a daily television talk show. Okay. I took to television right away. They were actually pretty shocked at how comfortable I was on camera. I figured I had nothing to lose, so I really, what's the difference? So I did it, and we messed up in a couple of areas. The set was wrong. We should have done a much different set. But be that as it may, it lasted, 9 months.
I don't think they let you be you. That was a problem.
They definitely did not. And they have, what people don't understand about WCNY is they have no money. They don't have any, they can't sell advertising, as it were. They have to sell sponsorships, and there's all kinds of rules and regulations around it. So they're constantly scrambling for money. And frankly, the guy that was my boss was an idiot. Okay, he's a good television guy, and he's actually, he was a television news broadcaster. I'm not going to mention his name because I don't have any good feelings about him. I received no coaching from anyone at WCNY about how to be on camera, what to do. I had to put my own makeup on. I didn't know if I was doing it right. It's just, they offered me nothing, and they had already fired Farah Jadran, right? And she was great. Her show was great. And she was there for a little while I was there. Then they let her go. Julie Tabuli, which is not her real name, is a chef who did a show on WCNY. She wanted to take the show national on WCNY. They didn't want to do it. She wanted to take it national on PBS. They didn't want to do it. So she left and went national on public television.
Right.
So it wasn't run well. But I don't have any bad feelings about it. I enjoyed doing it. It was fun. It was a different thing to do. So after about 8 months, there was no viewers. So they ended the show, and that's fine. I called Joni Mahoney probably 2 days later and said, I always wanted to work for your administration. And if you have anything open, I'd be flattered if you would consider me. And obviously, we had a great relationship when she was county executive. So she looked around for me and then hired me to do Save the Rain. What people don't understand about Save the Rain is what it is. They really don't understand what it is. Save the Rain means you're going to keep stormwater out of the sewage system in a variety of different ways, which are environmentally friendly. They do green roofs. They do porous streets. They do porous parking lots. If you're in a parking lot and it's raining hard and you don't see any puddles, it's porous pavement. The water goes through the pavement. If you're on a street, you don't see any puddles. It's the same thing. They lined the side of the street where the water runs off to with porous pavement. It goes down into the ground, into gravel or whatever, and it filters it all out and it goes into the watershed. So Save the Rain has kept by now, I'm sure, billions of gallons of water out of the treatment system. And that's what it's for. They built 2 huge facilities that store millions of gallons of water during a huge rainstorm. And they do all kinds of great stuff. So I worked for Save the Rain for about a year. And they transferred me to social services to be their public information officer. So what I did for them was basically handle interior and exterior communications, internal and external communications. And when I got there, I was ill, and I didn't know it yet. About a month into my tenure there, I was diagnosed with throat cancer. And so I went to my boss, the commissioner, Sarah, wonderful woman, fantastic leader, visionary, and said, I've just been diagnosed with throat cancer. Now, the problem is, in county government, you don't get sick days right away. You don't get anything right away. You have to earn it. I had 0 time saved up. So I had to work every day. So she told me, I told her I have to come to work every day. So she told me, just get here, do what you can do, and we'll work it out. As my treatments went on, I did 35 radiation treatments and 3 rounds of chemo. So as the treatments went on and we got further into it, my physical health deteriorated greatly. And she just said, as long as you can get in here and get to your cubicle, you're good. Who does that? I mean, she was just brilliant about it. And I'll always appreciate that. So I worked there for probably 5 years, I think. And I recovered, and I'm cured of my cancer. And they transferred me back to WEP, which is Water Environment Quality, and it's at the sewage treatment plant. But I wasn't going to work for Save the Rain. Actually, the mayor of Syracuse, his brother, Jed Walsh, was also a great guy. We shared an office. He ran Save the Rain. I wasn't running it when I was there. I was helping the woman who ran it. So he ran it, so I was not involved with Save the Rain. I was just involved with WEP. And fascinating what they do at the sewage treatment plant. It's incredible how hard these people work. It's also incredible, by the way, how hard social services people work. Imagine having a job where you go to work every day. You have a solid 8 hours of work to do, and when you're done, you're not done. There's no done in social services, okay? They're understaffed, and they're overworked tremendously. And how they do it, I don't know. I really don't. So I'm at WEP again, and I shared an office with Jed, who was rarely there. He had another office in another location. And again, just the nicest guy. Worked there until I was able to retire from the county. So when you start with Onondaga County after the age of 55, like I did, you have to work a certain number of years, and then you'll get a pension. It's a small pension, but you get a pension. So I stuck it out. I didn't like the job, but I had to have a job. And I stuck it out and worked until I was able to retire. And the day I was able to retire, I retired. I was 64. Walked out the door. It was great. I didn't want any kind of recognition or anything. And what I didn't know was, because I was by myself, again, in an office like downstairs from the main offices,
Position A.
No one told me that they were having a little thing for me. So I went up afterwards, like I'm ready to leave, and there's a cake there that had some pieces out of it, and like they had a little plaque for me and a card. I'm like, I didn't want anything. I just wanted to leave.
Now, how many years?
I think almost 10. Almost.
Okay, yeah.
Okay? Because you had to have 10. And so I used up all my time that I had. And I had saved a lot of time, especially sick leave. I never took a sick day. And you put that on, and it gave me enough to retire. So I retired. And now I'm retired. I'm 66. I feel 86, but that's all right. I'll get better sooner or later.
I'm kidding.
And I'm happy now. I do a garden, and I have an eBay selling business, and so that's catching you up on what I've done since then. And now producer Bill and I have decided to do this because, and I could have done this a very long time ago.
And I bothered you since day one.
Yes, you did. And maybe I should have, but I will be perfectly honest. I was so burned out from radio. I was so burned out. I mean, I was doing 3 hours of talk 4 hours at one point, with the last hour being a repeat of the first hour. So it was 3 hours of talk. And for those of you who don't know me personally, I'm really not that outgoing in public. I'm not the life of the party or anything like that. I'd rather just hang out,
You've always been like that.
Yeah, and so people think that, talk show hosts are these gregarious people or whatever. Rush Limbaugh was practically a recluse.
Yep.
So I'm not like super outgoing or whatever, but I was so burned out from radio. I just didn't want anything to do with it until now. Now I think it's important. And I think this election year is incredibly important, but I mean, we'll get to that. But I want to hear your story.
Well, and also going back, when we were on the radio, when we were together,
Yep.
the political climate was like 180.
Yes.
It was a whole different thing.
Completely different.
You're going to hear names. We never really, it was never really a Republican or Democrat thing with our show. Everybody, and that's how this show is going to be. Everybody's going to have a voice.
Right.
Because in local politics, that's the way it is. It's not like the national politics, and hopefully we can. But yeah, so that day I get your text. And that second that I got that text, it was like a weight that was lifted off of my shoulder immediately, because for how long? Since 2008, that election day, the inauguration day, until 2011, neither of us knew the second we walked in that door if that was our last day or not.
Yep.
So it was almost like this big weight was lifted off, and at that point,
That's interesting.
For me, it was like, it happened. My life can now move forward. My, at that time, wife we just found out that the month before that she was pregnant with my daughter, Aria, who's now 12.
Yep.
So I got a severance package. I didn't have a non-compete. I went and worked for Chris Geiger at Channel 3 and 5.
Mm-hmm. Chris is a great guy too, by the way.
Unbelievable. So then my ex-wife had to take some time off because she having the baby. So almost everything in my situation kind of worked. It worked out well.
Mm-hmm. Yep.
Because I was getting, unemployment. I was getting the severance, and then I went 2 weeks after we were gone. I was in a new position at 3 and 5. So for me, it kind of worked out. It was okay. But what was to come for me really stemmed from our time together and the connections that we made. And,
right.
And so I worked for 3 and 5 for a few years as I was the evening editor photographer for Channel 3 and 5. So I worked hand in hand with Matt Mulcahy, Jackie Robinson, and one of my favorite people that I've ever worked with, Michael Benny. Was just an unbelievable journalist, nice guy, behind the scenes, just as a great guy. We had so much fun in that. But you only in that position, I wanted to do what we were doing. I wanted to be a producer.
Mm-hmm.
I wanted to be in the newsroom, and it didn't work out.
Right.
Just didn't work out. I did some cool things. I met some cool people. I still talk to a lot of people at 3 and 5. I still talk to Michael on a regular basis.
Well, Michael and Matt are just as nice a person as you would ever meet in media. Just the nicest. I've known Matt for over 30 years, and I know Michael quite well too. And
not an ounce of ego in their body.
No, they're both great. They're both great.
I just saw Matt at the fair, and I have these guys coming up to me. It's cool. And everybody from Clear Channel, iHeart, Joel, Rick, everybody, Skip. We had a great time. We did things that we probably shouldn't have done.
Yeah, we did. We had a great time.
We got away with a lot. We went to concerts, and we would put things together that we wanted to do.
Right.
And made a program out of it.
Yep.
So after I had just newborn. I was getting up early to do weekends with Laura Hand. I wanted to do days, wanted to be the producer, didn't work out. Left there, and I went to work for my friend Jim Diliberto at Custom Logo.
Yep, another great guy.
And one of the big reasons was when I was at 3 and 5, I really started to ramp up playing music.
Mm-hmm. I remember.
Scars and Stripes was born with me in 2012, in January of 2012.
But you were in a band before that.
Yes, I was in Decree.
Decree,
that. Yes,
yep.
Decree, and then before that it was Pretense, a dirty little secret. But Pretense was their Decree was the stepping point.
Yeah, that was your base. You
Yes.
stepped off from that to go up.
Yes,
Because actually Decree was very good.
great. There's everybody. All those guys are still playing in the community. One night I just got a phone call from DMR, Stacy Waterman. Great. She's been an advocate of mine since the beginning. She said, the band Scars and Stripes needs a fill-in tonight. Singer's sick. Can you do it? It was a Thanksgiving Eve of 2011, so a month after we got blown out. And I said, sure, send me a list. Let me see what we can do. So they sent me a list of all the stuff and Scars and Stripes, before Scars and Stripes, it was a band called One Hard Crank.
Right, okay.
So there was a lineage of all this music and we put together a 3-hour show for Thanksgiving Eve. It was at Jake's Grub and Grog in Central Square, Brewerton area.
Yeah.
And at the end of that gig, they all there's 3 guys and only one guy is still left. It's Todd Stiles, Joe Rabine, and Joel Exline. Sat me down and said, hey, we want you to be the new singer of the band. It was an opportunity because they were playing the big stages, the Taste of Syracuse and stuff like that. So that was the stepping, and ever since then it's just been a whirlwind of playing music. So I went from Custom Logo. I went to Wolf Radio as a sales guy. After my first run at Custom Logo, I went to Wolf Radio, did sales. I couldn't financially. It just wasn't.
Yeah, it's
tough.
hard. It's very
tough for sales, especially. I'm used to doing on the other side.
Right.
So to my fault, I couldn't have the sales dog in me, like salespeople do.
Mm-hmm.
I didn't, because I knew how it worked on both sides.
Right.
So I went back to Custom Logo. No, I'm sorry. I worked for cell phone, AT&T.
Yeah, right.
For a couple of years.
Yep.
And then I was promoted as a small business manager. I went to New York City for 1 week for training. I got back and they basically told me, everything you learned there, you're really not going to use. We're really not going to put you into that position. We're going to have you do something else. And I was like, I'm done. I'm out. Went back to work at Custom Logo. Because I've always tried to, since that 2011, is weekends at that point were important to me, because that's when I played. I played on the weekends.
Right.
And at that time, it was until 2:00 in the morning.
Yeah.
So there was nights I would play a gig at 2:00 in the morning, be in it with Laura Hand at 4:00 in the morning.
Oh.
But that was, I was in my 30s, so it was,
right.
it wasn't awful.
But, yeah.
But so then finally one day at Custom Logo, I had gotten an opportunity to play a huge event for the auto part United Auto factory there by State Fair Boulevard over there. They have that. Yep. And it was a lunchtime gig, and they weren't too happy that I left to do that. And I made the decision that afternoon to put my 2-week notice in and say, you know what, it's time to, if I'm going to do this, let's do it. Obviously, at that point, I was with my now wife,
mm-hmm. and
all she said was, I don't care what you do, as long as the bills are paid.
Yeah, exactly. Right. Yes. And it's interesting because both your wives are great people, and Brandy is just a treasure. But it really points out something to me that a lot of people now don't understand. So you went from job to job to job to job because you always felt like, I have to work, I got to take care of my family.
Yes.
And I'm the same way. I went from job to job to job. As soon as I lost a job, I was looking for another one. Now, I know I sound like an old dude, get off my lawn or whatever. This generation doesn't do that.
No.
They don't want a career. But, I mean, I have 2 kids. One's 27, one's 23. The 27-year-old lives in Chicago, and he lives to travel. So he works to raise money to travel. And when I say he works, he does whatever. And for a while now, for like almost 2 years, he's a deckhand on a tour boat on the Chicago River, and he loves it. And it allowed him to travel to Bali and Thailand, and so that's what he wants to do. Great, as long as they're happy, that's all I care about. But my point is that we've completely changed as a society in that people don't feel like they want a career, they want a gig. It's a gig economy now for those people, and we're switching in that way, and you can see that in restaurants and other places that have such problems finding people. I mean, there's been restaurants that close down because they can't get people to work. That's crazy. And to open a restaurant now, you got to be nuts. But so you decided, and before you decided to take off to do music full time, I know you talked to our friend Joe Altier, right?
Oh
Just
yeah,
Joe.
he was. So I was at this was about a month away from doing music full time, and I sat down with, and I'll never forget, I was at JP's Tavern in Baldwinsville, and I sat down with Joe and I said, I know you're doing this for a living. If you can just give me a little bit of insight. I know you don't want to give all the secrets, but give me a little bit of insight. And he sat down with me and he gave me what I needed to do. And so I went in 2 weeks, boom. The first thing I did was find a gig. I could have the same place every week, so I knew I had it.
Yep.
And I had to make sure, and I had to make sure my weekends were all filled. So my first run was Maplewood
Inn.
Yep, which is now, it's under different management now, but I did I remember if it was Wednesday or Thursday. I did every Wednesday or Thursday there. I called Mark Bullis from Bull and Bear, who I'd done business with when I used to do karaoke back before I was with you. He's always been a friend of mine. I said, look, Mark, I've got to do this music thing. It's the only thing I know how to do the right way. I told him,
which is not true, by the way, but anyway.
I said, here's my thing. He said, okay, Fridays are yours. He goes, the days you can't do them, get somebody else. I'll pay you every week. It doesn't matter.
Wow.
And that was the stepping stone. And now I have more work than I know what to do with, which I love, because now I pick and choose what I want.
Right.
So so we're looking, so 2017 is when I went full time. That was full time music.
That long, really? That long ago?
Yep. 2017 was the first year I started. So 17, 18, I just kept building and building and building. And obviously, I ate a lot of shit.
Yep.
I was in debt for a little bit, for a little time, just because I had to get it going.
Absolutely. You got to ramp up.
But I've come to a place now where I'm happy with socially, my family, my work. It gives me an opportunity to do this.
Mm-hmm.
I teach now 3 days a week.
Yeah, that's awesome.
Which I never really wanted to do. I even, in between all of this, I was teaching private lessons at a friend's, just to extra money.
Sure.
And now it's extra money, but it's almost like gets me out of the house a little bit, because I played nights, and my schedule is usually summertimes Wednesday through Sunday, and then now I'm usually Thursday, Friday, Saturday, Sunday. It's 4 day.
But explain all the iterations that you have.
Okay, so I play most of the time I play solo.
Right.
I play by myself. I got my guitar. I play pubs, breweries, casinos, everywhere.
And look how the technology has changed how you sounded when you first went out solo till now.
When I can't remember this, my first solo gig that I did on my own, because I did do a duo with Jeff Rosen, who's my guitar player in Scars and Stripes. We were called Wicked Awesome for years.
Yes.
And I started out where I just sang and he played, and then I could play a little bit. I played a little bit.
Right. I remember.
And I would bring the guitar and play with him.
Chords.
He'd show me some stuff. And then he came to the point was, you don't need me anymore. And I went out on my own. So my first solo gig, I remember this, I plugged my microphone and my guitar right into the speaker. There was no effects.
Right.
It probably sounded like I sometimes I wonder how I got as far as I did.
Mm-hmm.
And it was at Mugshots in North Syracuse.
Oh, no kidding.
Toby and Nikki. Nikki used to work at Max Bad Harbor back in the day. I was playing there once a week. And at this time, it's not a lot. It's $150,
Mm-hmm.
For 3-4 hours at that time. But I grind and grind and grind and grind and grind. If Joe needed somebody, he'd call me, and that's. So now I'm up to, I have a whole, I get to, if it's local, I get there a half hour before. It takes me 15 minutes. It's full. I have effects, vocal effects, guitar effects.
It's amazing.
It's all live. I don't use any background vocals
it's
or anything.
Amazing.
And I have harmonizers and all that stuff. So that's the majority of my time. I'm alone, but my bread and butter, the reason I do all this is Scars and Stripes.
Right.
That's where most of the eyes.
And if you haven't seen Scars and Stripes, they're amazing. They're a great group, very tight. And obviously the vocals are great, but you guys are a great group. But that's not all you do.
No, so now I'm very lucky to have an unbelievable relationship with Turning Stone Casino. I play all their properties all the time. We're a once-a-month residency at the gig for Scars and Stripes. 3 years ago, because they know I do a lot of country when I play solo, he goes, "Do you have a band? Can you do a country band? We need more country bands." This was kind of right out of COVID. So before we get into that, it's 2020 happens, and I'm at this point probably physically at the lowest point of, I'm over 400 pounds. I'm miserable. The world shuts down. I have a nervous breakdown. My heart goes into some atrial fibrillation thing.
Yep.
The day that they shut the world down. 'Cause now I'm out of work. My wife's out of work. We don't know what's going on. She's okay because she can get unemployment. But at that point, I ain't going to get no unemployment.
No, you're
That's what I'm
self-employed.
thinking. So I'm in the hospital. I'm at the hospital. The first case of COVID went into.
No kidding.
The day after I was in the hospital. I was at Upstate. So obviously everybody knows nobody knew what was going on.
Right.
So I'm beside myself. I'm in the hospital. There's the COVID's in the hospital with me. I got out of that. I said I needed change. They allowed us to have unemployment. I sat on my couch. It was for almost 3 weeks straight every day for 8 hours a day. Retyping the number and just getting a busy signal. So I had to finally reach out. So I reached out to Al Sturpey.
Oh.
And he wasn't even my local official.
Right.
The only reason he's the only one I knew from our relationship, brother,
Right.
because he came into the thing before. So
Yeah, he was good to us. He was very good to us.
Anytime we needed him, he was in the studio with us. So I still have 75% of our contacts. So I went into my phone and I texted him and I said, Mr. Sturpey, this is former producer Bill I said, here's what's going on. Is there anything you can do? The next day, his assistant was on the phone. The next day, I had the process started. Back pay, everything, once again, weight lifted off the shoulder. I can finally move on. That's when I decided to make a lifestyle change. I hired a health and wellness guy.
Yep.
My first run, I lost over 150 pounds. I've gained some of it back. It happens. I'm back on track finally. So that
You went vegan for a while.
I went vegan for almost straight vegan. I still eat a lot of vegan stuff. I'm not 100% anymore. I'm going to start getting back into that lifestyle. I think getting into when everything started crumbling is I moved from Liverpool to Cicero, and this last year of just us, the change and everything, it was just we're finally settled in, and so then everything kind of ramped up after COVID, and I thought that it was not going to be that way.
Right.
But I did everything right. If I worked, I didn't apply for unemployment. I didn't want to take that chance.
Mm-hmm.
I was the bar owners in this area during COVID were very good to musicians. They found ways for us to make money when the state just did everything they could to keep us away from the venues.
Right.
It had to be a ticketed event. You had to sit down. It was for months. It was just so weird. But with the community, with the bar owners, we've pushed together. We've fought together. We pushed through. And our music community right now is so robust.
Yeah, it is.
That there's music in somewhere 7 days a week, sometimes all day.
Yeah, that's true.
The Tiki Bar in Baldwinsville in the summertime, every day, 2 times on Saturday, a couple times. There's enough. So going back, I was asked by the Turning Stone after COVID, hey, can you do country band? So I put the country band together. So now I play at
Against the Grain, right?
Yep. So then at the end of 2022, I got a phone call from, I'm very good friends with the owner of Sharky's, Jim Nichols. He's one of my favorite guys. Funny, great guy. He's been a supporter of mine since the beginning. The guy that's the go-between for the marketing there, John Pendergrass, called me. He goes, Bill, what are you doing in January? Do you want to go to L.A. with Held Hostage? And I'm like, I don't know. And at that time, I didn't know what Held Hostage was.
Right.
And they're just a local band that had their time in the 80s. They made some records. They came back early 2012. Came out with a couple records with the singer from the 90s from Judas Priest, Ripper Owens. He was their singer. So he couldn't do this L.A. Trip, which is the Heavy Metal Hall of Fame.
Right.
So at the end of January every year, to coincide with the biggest music convention in the world, NAMM.
Yeah.
They do this Heavy Metal Hall of Fame induction ceremony. And Held Hostage was playing at the Heavy Metal Hall of Fame induction ceremony. Gave me the boot. I learned the stuff, flew me out to L.A. That year was the year of the Twisted Sister reunion, and they were inducted. So I'm backstage, sitting at a table. So surreal. Dee Snider, Brett Scallion from Fuel, Lou Gramm from Foreigner, and Steve Vai. And they're talking about everything and anything, and I'm just ears open, mouth shut.
Yeah.
And it was one of the coolest experiences. And that show, we only did that year. We only did and it was literally a 15-minute performance. 3 songs. Open the show. Boom, done, out, hanging out, drinking vodka with Dee Snider. He had his own vodka. Get done with that. Summer comes. They ask me to be a part of the band now because Ripper can't do the dates. He's going off with the original guitar player of Judas Priest. They're doing their thing now, KK's Priest. So now this year I went to L.A., and we played the Hall of Fame ceremony again, and we played the Anaheim House of Blues.
Oh, I didn't know that.
The night after. Sold out. We opened up for Metal Allegiance, which is Mike Portnoy from Dream Theater, who we've had on the show before back in the day. And it's like a big super group. It's Alex Skolnick from Testament, David Ellefson from Megadeth. It's all these rock stars.
Wow.
And my dressing room is Held Hostage, and the direct support was this new band called Dieth, and David Ellefson from Megadeth is the bass player in that. So I'm in a dressing room with David Ellefson. Just cool. It's awesome. Great. Go out and do it. We played 30 minutes. It was the most. I'm at a legendary stage, House of Blues in Anaheim, sold out, and I'm having the time of my life because I have nothing to prove.
Right. Exactly.
I have nothing to prove.
I'm
doing this for me.
That's so freeing.
I do the Held Hostage stuff because there's not a lot of money into it because it's an original band. Tom, the guitar player, the original member of it, takes care of me. I don't have to worry about any expenses or anything. I sing his songs. We're in going to record a new record with me with me. And then we've also talked about putting out a live album with me doing the old songs. Now they've had a few hits that hit the Billboard charts because of Ripper and stuff. And it's fun. I have a lot of fun. So that's I have 3 bands. I do a solo. I do a duo if I need a duo. I get asked to do. I do this. There's 4 or 5 of us that are solo guys. We get together this summer. We play
Four
together.
Horsemen.
The Four Horsemen.
Yeah.
That's
what do you play when you do that? What do you guys play when you do the Four Horsemen?
We just do all of the stuff that we play is in our solo acts, but we all play and harmonize, and it's great. Dave Wolver from Off the Record, Tiger from Off the Reservation, Justin Smithson from Showtime, unbelievable. And then we just brought in a keyboard player, which is my keyboard player in my country band, Matt McGlory from Utica. He sings better than I do. You want to be, you surround yourself with, you're the best.
Right. That's
so
right.
I can learn. I always want to learn. I'll never be where I want to be. I always want to learn. It's because it's always changing. Everything's changing. But now it's getting. I'm 46. I just turned 46 last month. You turned 66.
Yep.
5 days after I did. And the grind is getting. It's getting to my voice, especially this time of year because of. But I'm at a point now where I don't have to really play as much as I did because I get paid well and I have the dates, and I have to stop. I have to stop doing 2 gigs on the weekends.
Yeah, well, you just did that. I was going to mention that you just did 2 gigs. That's a lot.
Yes,
that's a lot. Imagine
especially on a voice.
Right, exactly.
And
you're the lead singer.
And this weekend was held hostage, and it's all heavy. It's heavy, and it's a screamy type voice. And then I went from there, drove to the Turning Stone. You get there at 6:30, and you're there till 2 o'clock in the morning.
Ugh.
Start at 10 o'clock, and that's 3 hours of Van Halen, AC/DC, Led Zeppelin, newer rock like 3 Days Grace and Metallica and stuff like that. And then I got up Sunday morning and played a pub, awesome brunch place in Jamesville called Brian's Landing.
Yeah.
Awesome place.
Yeah.
And then I went to Pink.
Right. I know you were there. You had great seats too.
Yeah, my Brandy doesn't ask for a lot. She's not like a concert. She really hardly went to concerts before she met me, but she loves Pink, and I run her around everywhere. But you know me, I like everything.
Yeah.
I like everything, and it was unbelievable. But and so that kind of brings us to today.
Right. So let's talk about, for a little while, like a topic that I've been thinking about for quite a while, and that's misinformation. So misinformation now, for a large segment of the population, has become information. People can say whatever they want, lie or whatever, and there's a certain segment that will believe it. What the internet has done, it has collected all of the conspiracy theorists, all the idiots, all the racists, and has made it easier for them to espouse whatever they want to espouse. And there will always be a certain segment of the population that will believe it. And if you don't think that's always been the case, because it has, look at the KKK. They had a gigantic following for decades and decades, okay? And it was all misinformation. Now the internet has made it so much easier to put out that misinformation, and you can gather all the people who believe the same way that you do. And the problem with Fox News, CNN, MSNBC, all of them, okay, they only collect people who believe the things that they're reporting. So in other words, if I'm a conservative, a super conservative or whatever, which I'm not, I'm only going to go to the places that agree with what I think. And that is the core of the entire problem. We are now separated into these little segments, and we only go to places that agree with our ideology, and that's really bad. And so you look at the media now, local media is almost done. Okay, newspapers are finished. I love Syracuse.com. I always loved the Herald Journal and Post Standard. I'm a newspaper guy. I love it. They're done. Okay, newspapers are finished. So you lose that segment. And so a certain segment says, well, that's good because the media is blah, blah, blah. No, it's not good. It's bad. It's bad for everyone because we as journalists adhere to certain standards. Some don't. Fox News, for instance, does not. sometimes MSNBC does not. And then you have the outliers like Newsmax and all the rest of that junk. So that's a problem that I don't know how you get around. And it's been bothering me for a very long time, because when you subtract, especially local journalists, now politicians feel like they can do whatever they want. Now, I was watching a local channel last night, and there was a new reporter on the screen. And I mentioned to my partner, Shalene, I said, oh, look, they hired another high schooler, because that's what she looked like. And she has no idea what she's really talking about, because she has no background. She has no experience in this area. How can you when you're 22, right? So it affects and it hurts all of us. And something, I don't know what's going to change. Look at what's happening now in North Carolina. FEMA's been on the ground in North Carolina since they possibly could get there. And yet we get, well, FEMA's not helping us. That's wrong. And that's a lie.
Now, for context, you didn't have a smartphone.
No.
Until after.
Right. I got off radio.
Yeah.
Right. Yeah. I finally got an iPhone.
We didn't have Facebook.
No.
We had it.
But we didn't use it.
It's nothing like it is today.
No.
Nothing.
No. And X and all the rest of it. I'm off X. I'm not on X anymore.
Me too.
It's useless. It really is. I like Facebook because it keeps me in touch with the people I care about, and it really got me back in touch with some people from high school, some of my Navy friends, so it's useful in that way. But as an information tool, it's all wrong. It's all bad. Social media is completely wrong, and I worry about people Arya's age.
Every day.
Yeah, and it's bad. I mean, you look at stuff that can be said to these kids, and they take it to heart. Here's a great story. My daughter was in high school, and she hung out with a group of friends who were pretty profane, talking to the girls that they were a part of in their group. Very profane, actually. And so my ex-wife called me, told me what was going on. And so I went to my ex's house, the house that I lived in, and we had some of the boys come over, and I talked to them. And a couple of them I got out of line with, but that's all right. One of them I told, look, you got to make a decision. What kind of man are you going to be? Are you be the kind of man that defends girls from this, or are you going to be the kind of man that does this? And he got it. And they came with their parents, by the way. And one of them came with his mother. And I said to him, well, you don't mind if I read your text to your mom, do you? It was profane.
Oh, I see. My daughter's 12, and
right.
It comes across.
Yes, absolutely. So it's so bad. And I don't know. Again, I don't know. Now they're talking about, well, should we ban cell phones in schools? Why are we even talking about this? The answer is yes. Now, right. Look, there's a school shooting, so I got to have it.
That's my ex-wife's mindset. I get, we'll have conversations and stories about our exes and stuff. We co-parent. We don't fight. I gave them my extra tickets to Pink the other night.
Yeah, I have a great relationship with my ex, yes.
So a lot of times I'll laugh at stuff that my ex-wife says, and she'll understand why. But she really she wants her to have that phone on her all the time.
No.
I don't.
No.
Which is weird, because I'm the phone guy.
I know you are. So what they can do, I think, is you put your phone in a box in the classroom when you go in. Put it in the box. And all the cell phones are in that box. They stay there. Now, when the class is over, you give them their phone so they can have it in the hallway or whatever. But not in class. I mean, they're looking at their phones in class.
Yep.
See, again, I could never be a teacher. I have the greatest respect in the world for teachers, because I couldn't do it. I couldn't. I'd lose it. If I look at a kid looking at his cell phone while I'm trying to teach, I'd lose it.
So I'm teaching 6th, 7th, 8th grade, and they're not. The phones can't be out. So that's
what do you teach, by the way?
So this program is at the Elm School at Syracuse City School District. It's an after-school program. It goes from 1:55 to 4:55 every day. It's they have an hour where the kids. It's a really cool program. They kind of it's their chill out hour. They play some games. They'll go have a snack. Then they go into academics for an hour, and I just kind of monitor that class with the teacher. And then we go into enhancement classes, and that's what I do. So every summer, the last 2 years, I was asked last year to be a moderator / mentor at Red House's rock camp in the summer.
Right. Yes.
It's literally one of my favorite things I do.
Yeah,
in the
I
year
bet.
now. It's awesome because we have kids that know how to play their instruments a little bit. They write songs. They perform. We go on live. We just kind of guide them. We don't sit there and teach them how to play the stuff. We guide them. We play along with them. Great kids. I love it. So they've implemented parts of that in this after school program. So the last hour while I'm there, the problem with this though, these kids really haven't picked up an instrument.
Right.
So what we're going to be doing is we're going to be watching a lot of videos of musicians, and then we'll pick up an instrument, and we'll explain what the instrument does and stuff like that. But I'm at the mindset that if you can get music in your kids' lives, their academics will be better for it. Because music, if you can get your kids into a music program, it's very complex. It's not easy.
No, it's not.
I mean, Crane School of Music was the hardest thing I ever tried to get into, and I didn't get into it. I couldn't get into Crane School of Music. Just the knowledge, when you find somebody that has that kind of knowledge about music, it's like nothing else.
And you should find somebody that has that kind of knowledge about anything.
Exactly. So if you can have kids focus on music, it's taking that time away from them to just be sitting there and getting into trouble.
Right.
And it's
being on social media.
Yeah, and it's been noted that students do better if they're in music classes.
Absolutely believe it. And I think the arts is so important in school, even beginning in elementary school.
And I'm an advocate for sports too. But
right. Yes.
There has to come a fine line of when the money that we spend on one thing, when we know there's something else that needs it. And I get it. Sports is what makes the money for the schools.
Yes.
But
unfortunately.
Yes.
Yes. Not the arts, which is what we need. And I took clarinet as a kid in elementary school. I wanted to take trumpet, but we couldn't afford it, so I got the clarinet. I liked it, kind of, but it did, like you said, if you can learn the concepts of, number one, reading music, and number two, playing it, you can pretty much learn the concepts of anything.
Yep.
Except maybe algebra or whatever, which I hated. God. But, like you said, it's so complex and it's so involved that it teaches you to concentrate. It teaches you how to learn something. And if you can learn music, you can learn anything.
Yep.
And I think it's exceptionally important.
But yeah, so the kids don't have phones. They don't have phones at this school, so which is good. But I mean, I go through it with my daughter.
Yeah.
And and she's so naive and so.
She's 12.
She loves everything. She loves everybody. She loves the kids. She doesn't have a hurtful or mean bone in her body. But man,
that's the type of kid that's going to get really hurt by somebody who says something.
And they do.
Yeah.
And they do. And
yeah.
it kills her sometimes.
Yeah.
And it kills me.
Yeah.
I mean, I live in a really nice area in Cicero, and we have zero issues. We have great neighborhood. One day, a cop came to the door, and there was a porch pirate. That's our means of that's our excitement here, and it was in the age range of where Aria would go to school. So he comes to the door and he's like, "Is your daughter home?" And she was at her mother's house. It was a weekend. She was at her mother's house. So I have her here. I have her with me during the week as she goes to school in our school district, and she goes to her mother's on the weekend, which is great. It works out good for us. It works out good for her. But there's also, like, during the week, if she wants to go to her mother's house, there's no. So the cop comes, he says, "Is your daughter home? I'd like to have her see this video." And he shows me the video. So I call her. First thing out of my mouth is, "There's a police officer here. Is there anything you need to tell me?" And the cop, he popped. He's like, and he goes, "Oh." She's like, "Oh." And so we kind of FaceTimed, and he showed her the video, and and it went from there. But she didn't know any of the kids, and the one kid went in front of the door with her jacket over her head, and I said, "Yeah, my daughter will be dancing in front of the camera."
singing.
But the cop goes, we've been to a few houses already in the neighborhood, and you were the first one that, said what you said right off the bat. I said, listen, I'm going to hold my kid accountable for. I was never a bad kid. I was just nuts. I've never been in trouble with the police. I don't have a record. I've never been in the back of a police car.
Nope, me either.
It's, that's
only because I could outrun them. We were troublemakers as kids in my neighborhood, but we were in our neighborhood, and doing like childish things.
Yeah,
not like they do today. It's crazy today, and it's dangerous today, and you worry today. She's 12 years old, and like you said, she's like the most innocent kid I've ever seen, and she's the nicest kid. She's very talented, obviously, and that's the kind of kid that gets hurt by these people who say hurtful things just to say hurtful things. This
is my kid. I upgraded my tickets for Sunday a couple hours before the show, and we had very good seats. We were right in the front. And so I gave my daughter and her mother the tickets that we had, which was, towards the back of the floor area. And there was, anytime anybody came up to where we are, they, shoo away. And I looked at the guy and I said, my daughter's, about 3/4 of the way back. Can I bring her up here for a couple songs? And she would, yeah, go ahead. It was weird because they were throwing people out of there. Like, so I got her, brought her up. She stayed for 2 songs. She looks at me. She goes, Mommy's alone back there. I'm going to go, make sure she's all right.
That's great.
Yeah.
That's awesome. It is. It's just, that's the way it should be. And unfortunately now, in too many cases, that's not the way that it is. And it's really a shame. So going forward with the podcast, we plan on featuring local musicians.
Yep.
I have a little Georgie and the Shuffling Hungarians shirt on right now. He'll be part of the program. Joe Altier, of course, just Joe. I'd like Joe that if he wants to explain his story, because he has quite a story.
Yes.
And he's been very open about it. The issues that he has faced, which I think is incredibly brave of him to do. When you're a musician, and you know this better than me, it's all about public image, and it's all about how you present yourself. And he just laid himself bare on Facebook, and it was just awe-inspiring to me. So he'll be on. Any local musician who has, Irv Lyons is a very good friend of mine. Any local musician who has music who wants to share it with us certainly is welcome.
We're going to try to figure out how to implement music. It's so different now because we're so used to having, the flamethrower behind us, so we can do anything we want. We have to find out what the right way of doing this. I know we can. There's a lot of copyright and stuff. We're going to figure all that out. But we're going to let this kind of build itself.
Right.
I kind of hope we do something. And one good thing about, and I've just told this story to somebody, we were never into gotcha stuff.
No.
And that's why I liked our program. We had everybody on, and we let the listeners make their own decisions. And under no circumstances is there going to be any vitriol or anything on this program. There's no need for it.
No. So I will ask the questions I want to ask. I will. And I expect them, whoever them is, to answer. The best interviews, and I'll give you a little inside baseball and a little secret. The best interview is when I ask a question and they give me an answer and I ask another question off that answer. Or I delve a little deeper into what that answer was. Anyone who comes into an interview with a list of questions, that interview is going to be terrible. The best interview is you listen to what the other person is saying and you react off of that. I don't know how many interviews I've seen where someone will answer a question and I'll go, holy cow, you got to explain that. And then the interviewer just goes to the next question.
Yeah.
No. The best interviews that I've ever done came from people who we just started talking on their conversation. Martin Short, I never knew Martin Short was a hunter. He's got a cabin in Canada that he goes to all the time. Burt Bacharach, when we interviewed him, I loved Burt Bacharach, by the way.
He was
great. We interviewed him, and we talked about the aftermath of 9/11 and whether or not his music was soothing to people during that time. And he was kind of like taken aback by that. I never thought of it like that. And he had just done something with Elvis Costello, who's one of my favorite artists of all time. and we talked about that. So you talk about things. I mean, John Waite, when I first interviewed John Waite, when we first started, he was not real happy with being there.
Nope.
And then as soon as I mentioned the babies and all the other stuff he had done, he was like, oh, this guy knows about me, and he's he knows what he's talking about. He was awesome. I mean, he performed in our studio.
Yep.
He wore my T-shirt at his concert.
That was the coolest thing.
That's the very coolest thing.
And in the market where the guy that's on in our old studio
Rochester
now is
right.
Yeah.
He said, "You like my T-shirt?" And it said,
It
"Got
was the
Reith."
best.
It was awesome. So he was great. So that's what we're going to do. If you're a politician, though, we're going to tell you, and Bill will be the one contacting people. We're going to tell you before you even come on. You're going to be asked questions that I'm going to want an answer to. Like our two local guys running for Congress, they both lie their asses off in their commercials. Both of them. And it bugs me. And it should bug everybody. But instead, we brush it off as saying, well, they're politicians. No, they're lying, okay? That's the bottom line. So we'll see. We'll see how it goes. I know we still have 1 million contacts. We're trying to get County Executive Ryan McMahon to come on. There's a lot of stuff to talk about, obviously. Micron and whether that's going to happen. The $100 million now aquarium. I'm a huge fan of Ryan McMahon. I'm not on board with this.
I haven't figured out the reward for the risk.
Exactly.
Because it's a lot of money.
Yeah, it is.
And everybody does it. I see it in the comments. It could go to this. It can go to that. Yes, obviously there's money earmarked for certain things, inner workings, but I don't get it.
I don't get it either. And so maybe
hopefully he'll help us get it.
Yeah, hope so.
And we're not here to, like I said, we're not here for the gotcha stuff.
No.
It's not. That gets you nowhere.
No, I want to inform people like we always did. We always inform people, especially about local issues. We'll talk about some national stuff or whatever, but we want to focus locally. We want to focus about issues that affect everyone, including us.
Yep.
And that's another thing that people, I think, don't understand. Things that affect you affect me and affect you, Bill. And we're the same as you. We're just talking, okay? So I live here my whole life except for 5 years. You've lived here your whole life.
Except for 2 years.
Right. And you went to New York, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. So I went in the Navy and saw the world. But we want people to understand what's going on in a way that's not biased in any way, shape, or form. We both have our biases politically, and that's fine, but not in the show. And that's our goal.
And that's something we did from day one. It was always like that. There was only one time you threw somebody out of the studio. The guy running against Kevin Walsh one year came in and yelled at me because he had to wait too long.
Hi.
And you threw him out. I never seen it. Was the best.
And the only celebrity I ever had a problem with was the idiot who was in Skinny Atlas. It was James Taylor's son with Carly Simon.
Oh, yeah.
Remember him?
Yep.
So he came on. I hung up on him. It's the only celebrity I ever had a problem with. He was a jackass.
And Baldwin wasn't that great. Remember, he was right
Stephen
before
Baldwin.
We were about to go on
Yes.
on air. He picked up his phone.
Yes. So here's what happened was, well, maybe we'll save that.
Yeah, I have somewhere in these shelves, I have jump drives of our like big interviews, like stuff that we've done. Like, I have that Robert Goulet video interview somewhere.
Boy, he was great.
Yeah,
such a
Last
nice
interview.
guy. Yeah, he had a heart attack on the plane.
On the way home.
On the way home, boy, and his wife. Remember, his wife called and wanted the interview, and we don't do that, but
Ever.
we did.
Yeah,
we did.
That was like I pulled you and Joel into a room. We never gave it to anybody.
No, you can't.
Even Ed Mencken used to come after us and want the interviews because I think he just wanted to hear his voice.
I love Ed. I used to love him. Boy, he was a great guy.
Eddie Z.
Yeah. All right, so that's it for the pilot podcast. It's the Jim Reith Show Unleashed, and I say unleashed because we don't have anybody to answer to now. I don't have to answer to corporate anybody. I don't have to answer to anyone, and neither do you. So that's what we're going to do in a respectful manner, but we're going to get you the information that you need. We appreciate it. Thank you for checking this out, and we'll see you next time.
You gotta end the show with your signature ending.
God willing, we'll all be back at it next time on the Jim Reith Show Unleashed.